Hi everyone, welcome to Assist Tech Hub. In this video, we are we'll understand Spring Boot logging, how SLF4J works, why Logback is the default logging framework, and how to use Logback log levels correctly in real-world projects and the best practices we are going to learn. So before moving to SLF4J, let's understand about what is logging and what is the use of log. Those things let's understand. So logging is nothing but the process of recording what is happening inside an application while it is running. So if we store the logs, then the developer or the support team can check the logs if any production issue came. Let's understand with an example. Imagine if we order a food item in online. Internally, if we can configure the application logs, so it's storing the steps in log files like order is placed, then the restaurant is accepted the order, then the delivery partner received the order for delivery to us. Okay, so these are the logs we are storing, store. These are the logs we are storing. If the order has not delivered due to some issues, then the support team can quickly check where the issue is exactly when we are raising a concern to the team or the support team and trying to solve the issue. So the log will be help us to find the errors at quickly at which line the error has happened and what was the reason for that. So, and another thing, log will be help us to monitor the performance, API response time, database queries execution time, where exactly time is taken. By logging, we can get the execution time so that further we can improvise those queries or the performance, those things. Now, as all we know, like system.out.println and logging, right? If we can write the system.out.println also, those messages will be printed in the console. Let's understand what is the use of system.out.println and logging. If we will be put the system.out.println for our local testing only, and there is no log labels defined by default, and there are no structure one, and that time if in next time if we can restart our application, those will be wiped out. But the logging things, what will be happen if we redeploy the application, sometimes we can store the logs we can use in production or any deployed environment, but the system.out.println is not recommended any deployed code or when you committed the code. Always we have to check about the those system.out.printlns. Those things we have to remove before committing or before deployment those codes. Always we are going to prefer the logging only. So let's understand, like, logging is a mechanism to record application events at runtime to help in debugging, monitoring, and understanding system behavior, especially in production environment. Okay. Now coming to Java, in Java, logging is not a built into applications directly. So different frameworks have created to solve real production problems like performance, flexibility, and configurations. Because of this reason, we have a multiple options such as Java Data Util logging, Commons login, those things, Log4j2, Logback, those things. So Java Util logging used only for small or legacy applications. Rarely in modern Spring Boot projects we are not. Then Commons logging, it is used heavily in old Spring versions. Right? In older Spring versions, we are using those things. Then coming to Log4j2, Logback, we are using commonly in Spring Boot applications. And in Spring Boot, the default logging framework is the Logback. Like in Spring Boot, we have a default log framework like default Logback. Okay. Now, now if we can combine all those things, so Java util logging is a basic and built into the JDK. Commons logging is an abstraction layer, while Log4j2 and Logback provided advanced high performance and configurable loggings used in real-time enterprise applications, with Logback being the default in Spring Boot. We'll be understand those things in later point of the. Now let's come to the SLF4J. So what is SLF4J? SLF4J is not a logging framework. Okay, it is, if I, as I mentioned here, it is not a logging tool. It is just an interface, right? Like SLF4J is a common interface used to connect our code with a real logging framework. Okay, if we can understand a simple way, like our TV remote, the remote does not display anything, right? It only controls the TV. The similar way, SLF4J, the similar way SLF4J does not write any logs, only tells the real logging framework what to do. The backend logging framework what we configured, those things taken care to write the logs. Okay. Now, if you see here, I mentioned in a diagram, Spring Boot, like Spring Boot sends all logs through SLF4J, right? SLF4, which acts as a common interface, and logback handles the logs by default, but it can be replaced with log4j2 or java.util logging without changing the code. What it means, like for example, we'll understand like why can't we, like when we use log4j2 and logback. So this point we can understand, without changing code we can replace with log4j2 or java.util logging. Now let's understand, instead of using SLF4J, we can use directly log4j2 or logback or Java util logging. Right? If we use logback or log4j2, right, APIs directly, the application becomes tightly coupled with that particular framework, log4j2 or logback. Switching to another logging framework later becomes, it will be bit difficult. Now for example, I can use log4j2, and in future I have some requirement, I have to move to logback, or I am using logback, I have to move to log4j2. So that time it will very be difficult. Every piece of logging I have to go ahead and change the code, right? Then, so what will then, SLF4J, it helps to come up with those problems or to solve those problems, right? Now SLF4J, this Spring Boot application will be use SLF4J, code uses only SLF4J. Then actual logging is handled by backend like logback or log4j2. If we can use SLF4J, and the framework log4j2 or by default logback, then our application will be send the logs to SLF4J. SLF4J will be see either we configured log4j2 or logback or Java util logging. Based on that, it will be sent the logs or write the logs. This is the benefit of using SLF4J. In future, if you are moving to log4j to logback or logback to log4j2, so that time we are not going to modify or change any code. So if you see here, switch backend from logback to log4j2 or log4j to logback without changing any code. We can easily switch the logging framework here. Now, so Spring Boot is providing the default logging framework like logback, because it gives the auto configuration. Logback logging works immediately without writing any config files. Logback performs well for typical enterprises and microservices workloads. Logback XML configuration is easier to understand compared to older logging frameworks. Auto configures logging, no manual setup is required. Then Spring Boot provides console logging, default logging pattern also. We will be see the default logging pattern when we are writing the code, or will be go through the examples. That time we will be understand what will be the default log pattern. Actually, the default log pattern will be like this, and we'll be understand when we are going to write the code, or we'll be go through an example. Now let's understand all the log labels, when to use which log label, and how we are going to decide when to use the trace debug. There are multiple log labels is there, like trace, debug, info, var, error, off, what it means. So the very important point here I have highlighted, if you set log label equal to info, then info, one and error will be logged up to info, error, one, info. Up to info it will be logged in the console or log, right? Then the debug and trace will be ignored. And what is off, that also we are going to discuss and understand this one. Now if you see log label trace, so trace, when we are going to use, like whenever we need to understand the each and every step of the execution flow. For example, a create functionality is there, right? Create user, let's understand about the create user, how the user has created, like step by step the user has enters, the execution flow started, then the user data is validated and the mobile number is validated, the email id is validated, then all the steps we want. So that time if we go through, if we want to understand each and every steps, then we have to go for trace. Or if you see here, I mentioned loop iteration, variable values, internal flow, then we can go for trace level and we can define the trace level. And some use cases like SQL parameters, if we are going to print whatever queries it is generating at the time of create query, or fetching the users, those times. Now it, if you see, this is not recommended to use in the production environment, this trace one. It will be right all, like how can, like all the logs, like unused logs also it will be right. So that is not recommended at all. Now debug, this one we are using at the time of development or developer debugging during development time. So when we are using development or developing a functionality, in some conditions we want to see the values, what values it is coming, some conditions passing or not, those times we are going to put the debug one. Like if you see if a method is entering or existing, check condition values, this one also we are disabling in production. Debug also not recommended to use. And info, so this info level is like confirm some normal application behavior. For example, like if we are creating a user or a payment gateway, like here I have given an example, user has a created, like important business events, high level steps, successful operation. For example, a user has created successfully, so that time we can log it, yes, user has validated everything and user has created successfully, or the order has placed successfully, server start, request received, order created, payment completed, like those things, high level things we can mention. Or we can log info, log.info, so we can mention log.info. And if you see here, we mentioned a placeholder. This placeholder will be replaced with this order id, order 123 placed successfully, right? This is the placeholder. Then coming to the one level, use when something unexpected happens but the app continues. For example, we see some warnings like a user has entered incorrect password. So that is kind of a warning only. If you see some applications two to three times, the if they enter the password two to three times, then that time it is blocking those things. The user ID has deactivated for some times or paused for some times. Suspicious is unrecoverable error, something that might become a problem. feature deprecated, API taking too long time, retriable exception, incorrect user input. Okay. Then the error. Error is nothing but used for our critical failures that need immediate attention. What it is, like for example, some DB calls fails or some exception has happened, some null pointer exceptions, some application module is not giving correct response. Those things. At the time of those things, we have to put log.error. Those things. If you see payment service dot process order of log payment failed for that order, and that is why the payment is failing. Those things we have to identify, right? And coming to off. So off is used to turn off all logging, whatever we mentioned, like log.info, log.debug, log.one, log.error, log.trace, whatever we mentioned, it will be not print any logs. That is the use of log.off. So if you see when to use, when we want no logs. So this is used in some time of performance testing or load testing, or if we don't want any logs to print, that time we can go for log.off actually. So that time we can identify the codes, like we can see the performance, how much exact time it is taking, those things. Okay. So now let's go through an example and understand it. Okay. Now let's create a Spring Boot project and we will be see how to write the logs and where to use which log labels. We'll see. So now by using Spring Initializer, we can create our Spring Boot project. If you can go for Google and Spring Initializer, by using Spring Initializer, we can create our Spring Boot project. And once we are going to Spring Initializer, and we'll be add the data JPA, starter web, Spring Web, Lombok, and PostgreSQL database driver. Okay. Then we'll be click on generate this project so that it will be generate this project. Okay. But for now I have already created a project and and added one API as well. Okay, like creating and placing the order API. So only to focus on the log things, how to write the logs, those things. Apart from all the logics I have added, so no need to worry about that. Now let's focus on to write the logs. So earlier we discussed the log labels like trace, debug, info, warn, error, off, right? Okay. So when we are creating the project and all the things and writing the code, okay, let's focus on the trace one where we are going to use the trace label. Trace label nothing but very detailed level if we want to write the logs. Like if you see here I have mentioned, right, we have to create the logger object here, then we can try to logger dot trace, correct, logger dot trace, like our message, correct, order request, for example, order request received. Okay, comma order detail, correct. So now when the request will become, it will be print all the fields from the order detail here. Okay, so this is nothing but the trace label, correct. So this trace label, if we really want to log each field, right, each field value from the request, we should use trace label. So this can we this trace level we can use this type of logs in the development or debugging mode only. If we want some things to identify, some use cases or some functionality to identify, then we can use the log dot trace and we can print all the logs, all the value, all the field values in the log. The same way, let's now this is trace, right? Now debug, correct. So debug also we can, like here if you see, if we can put logger.debug, creating order for user, order detail dot get username, right? So this is also creating an order for user, right? So this is kind of a detail level log only. Okay. So what is this is a placeholder actually. Okay. This is a placeholder. We cannot write like string concurrent, string concatenation. Okay. This is not recommended way to write. So we can write the placeholder so that this value order get username, it will be inject to this placeholder value. Okay. So development, debugging application flow, understanding the internal execution, we can use debug and trace level. Correct. Now we can go for the info level. Correct. So info level means like if you see here line number 26, here we have creating a order. We are saving the entity and we are creating an order. After that we want to know either that order has created successfully or not. For that case we can use the info level. It is a success case, right? So logger dot info, logger dot info, order has created. Correct. Order order created with order id equal to for user. Okay, so two placeholders I had given, right? Now give the two values order detail dot, sorry, placed order dot get order id will be generated from the database side. Okay. Now place order dot get username. Okay, whatever it is. So this way, okay, here order create. So this is recommended to do. Okay. This info level we are adding at the time of success cases, successful business flow, or the functionality has completed. Those things we can add the info level, we can use it. Okay. Now after info, one mode. Okay, one level. So one level, for example, in some cases, right, the order has placed for some guest user. We don't have the username, or the user has not registered with us in the system. The registered has not registered. Okay. So there, what we will do, like that will be not stop the placing the order. Logger dot one of placing order for guest user. Okay, placing a order for guest user. This will be execute, this will be log for more analysis or based on the business. Okay. Now this will be move forward to execution. Okay. Now if you see here, there is a catch block. For example, at the time of placing the order, right? This is one mode, correct? One level. So something like one will be use the application execution does not stop. Okay. This time we can use log.1. Now for example, now one has completed, then error level. So in error level, for example, whenever we are saving or placing an order, it is interacting with database, right? When it is interacting with database, maybe sometime we don't know, right, database is down or some field level values is more than expected, whatever validation in the table level side. So that time we got some error. So that time what we will do, use error, logger dot error, like error at the time of placing the order, placing the order, e dot get message. Okay, so this is the error thing. Okay, like for example, order placement fails, or the payment has failed, or some unexpected exceptions happen. So those things we can log it here. Correct. Now let's run this application. Okay, if you see here, we have created the object. Let's run this application. Okay, application has started. Let me hit that API from the postman. Okay, see, now I'm giving the request John, product ID, quantity, delivery address, payment mode, these things. Okay, now let me send the request. We got a new order ID has created 66, right? Now if you see order created with ID 66, correct? Yeah. But these things are not printing, right? Earlier we discussed if we give the log level info we have configured, then up to info level only it will be print. Let me check the properties file. Okay, here we had given the info. Now let's give a stress, okay, so that other logs will also print. See, there are a lot of logs is printing. See, lot of logs. Okay, now timeout completed, case processor. Okay, okay. Now order one more order is created. Correct. Okay. Now let's see new endpoint. Okay, let's search for that log. Order service. Okay, see here. Order request received, order DTO, order ID, null, username, all the things it is printing. Correct. So there are a lot of logs is printing. Whenever you need some understanding the flow and debugging the issue, then you can enable that trace label. Okay, but that is not recommended at all in the production system. There will be a lot of noise, a lot of logs will be print. Okay, let's stop this application now and change the to info. Okay, okay, we are good. Let's start the application again. Okay, now if you see here, we are manually creating this factory object, logger object, right? We are manually creating the object. Okay, before that we will be check. I'll let you know one more thing. Never tried for this kind of things actually. That is a bad practice actually. Logger.info order created with order ID. Okay, or string concatenation, right? Earlier we decided to discuss. Okay, then place order or get order ID. Okay, like now get username. Never order created for user. Okay, never try this type of logs. This is a bad practice actually. Okay, this will be too much of logs. Now if you see this is looks cleaner, this will be no string concatenation. Okay, these things. Okay, now if you see here logger object we are creating manually, right? We have multiple services classes. Now here only one service, right? In our real time projects or the industry level projects we have a hundreds of services. So hundreds of services, and if we'll be write this one, this is kind of a boilerplate logic only, right? So earlier I have told we have added the lombok also, correct? So directly we can use at the SLF4J annotation here. At the SLF4J. If you see here, Lombok, okay, SLF4J. Now this line is not required. At the time of compilation only, this will be generate this code base, okay. But this will be a default name provided log, not logger. If you want to see this one, let me Control C, Control F, Control R, replace with log. Okay, now we are good. Yeah. Okay. So this line will be now generated by Lombok, and we no need to create manually. This is the benefit of using Lombok here. So it is recommended to use Lombok, but in some cases, some of projects are not allowed to use Lombok. So in that case, we can go for manually creation the object of logger, or else we are good to use SLF4J annotation directly. Okay. Now if you see, these logs are printing. Okay, where that import. Okay, again. Now if you see, these logs will be print in the console, correct? Let's see it again. Okay, 68. If you see, this will be printing in the console. For example, this application has restarted. This order ID, let's take a note of this one, okay, for our understanding only. Okay, now let me stop the application, okay, to show the real-time problem. If I want to find out the order ID 68, then I cannot identify now because I lost those things. Correct. For that, after we are printing the logs in the console, and in the real project, always write the logs into a file so that they will be not lost after the application restart or redeploy some new code version. So then, okay, that time, then the file based logs will be help the developers. If we store this log somewhere, then we can identify early sometime later. Okay, for example, I store this login somewhere, then tomorrow I'll come up and I will be identify these logs as well, correct? Okay, now for that we'll be go for file based logging now. Okay, so that the developers can identify, or the support teams can identify the logs or analyze the production issues later, and can be easily sent the some tools like ELK or CloudWatch, those things. Okay, now for to write in the file, we have to configure like our logback spring.xml file, logback minus spring.xml file. So the Spring Boot understands this default file naming convention. Okay, now let's open this file. I have already added some configuration. Let me explain to you. Okay, now, like in a real-time project, we are not writing all the logs always into one file, because day by day the log file will be increased, the size will be increased, and the memory of that file will be increased, and eh, then it will be come up with the storage cost wherever we are storing that file, right? So maximum for 30 days, or 30 days we are storing the files. Daily file we can generate based on our based on our requirement. Okay, daily one log file we can generate, so that based on the date we can identify the logs if some issues came. Okay, now if you see here, we have the configuration like appender console. Okay, this part of appender, it will be print the logs into the console appender. Okay, then earlier, if you remember, sometime back we have discussed like default pattern it is providing Spring Boot, right? So the default pattern logging, if you can see the logs here, see the date time, okay, then the label info, okay, then if you see thread, okay, then logger, then message, okay, shutdown completed, those things. If you see this log also, right, order service we have copied this one. If you can rerun, we can check that this pattern. Okay, this pattern the logs are printing if you see here. Okay, now most of industry standards follows daily waste file. Okay, so if you see here this appender name, this class, okay, then rolling policy, time based rolling policy, and we have give the file names based on our requirement. As this is an order service, so I have given the order service minor dash yymmdd dot log file. Okay, so it will be generated in the logs folder. Okay, now if you see max history, I had given 2. Okay, Now if you see encoder pattern for this file as well, this is the pattern. Now root level info I have giving, right? The log level info console daily file. So these data, this console log and as well it will be right into the console and into the file. Okay, the file naming convention will be this one. Okay, now if you see here, okay, let me close this one, delete this one. Okay, now let me restart the application. At the time of restart the application, if this folder is not there, Spring Boot will be taken care of creating that folder. Okay, if you see here, okay, application has started. Okay, here let's go here. Okay, the logs folder will be generated, and if you see the date 6/1/2026 order service, let's open this file. Okay, see the logs it is printing here, correct? Now let's hit this API. Order ID 69 has created, correct? Now if you see here in the notepad, the file is modified so that some data has written into that file. Let's see order created with order ID 69 for user John, right here. So the benefit of this one. Now let me stop this application. Okay, now let's restart that application again. John 123 user. Okay, now let's create another one. Okay, it is created. Now see the earlier order created with 69. Okay, now if you see another, both are there in that same file. Okay, now I want to see the error, right? Okay, let me give, okay, some known exception. If you see here, delivery address Bangalore. Okay, if we can give some unknown number of characters, by default it is 250 dB, right? Let me give some more than 250 characters. Okay, okay, perfect. Now, okay, order ID has a null. Okay, now let's see error value too long for character type. Okay, this error we got a success response here, but there is no order ID. We didn't configure properly the logic. Okay, now let's see our file, either this logs is printing or not. See, this logs is printing here. Okay, now one more thing I want to show you here. Now we had given, right, daily file. How we can know this one is generating every day or not? Instead of every day, let's configure for some minute. Okay, let's comment out this line. Okay, so we will change the time name file. Okay, and we'll change this one, the time based trigger. Okay, now let's start the application again. Now the file will be generated with ddhmm. Okay, let's open the file. See, here it is started, right? 6/1/2026 23:57, correct? Now every 1 minute it will be generated. Okay, if you see here, I had given interval as every 1 minute it will be generate one file, and max history will be 2. What is max history? Keep the logs will be last 2 files only. Okay, after that it will be automatically deleted. Earlier it we actually standard for 30 days only. So after 30 days it will be delete the previous files, older files more than 30 days. Now if you see here 2, right? Now if you see time format, it is one file. Let's hit the API again. The same error thing. See, another one is generated, right? 2350, 23:07. Okay. Now if you see 23:58. Now let's hit another time. Okay, 23:59. Okay, see. Now, if you can go for here 2359, it is storing three files, right? Why? Because it will be, this is the current file now 2359. If I can hit another one, it will be delete automatically this file. Okay, this is the current file. 59. Okay, we'll be wait for one more minute so that we can hit another one. Okay, now let's see. See, 57 has removed, right? Yeah, this is the rolling base policy actually. Now let's see some more bad practices. Okay, like we cannot logging multiple things wherever it is required necessary things, then only we can use. Then we have to avoid the excessive logging to reduce the noise and performance impact. Then appropriate log labels we have to focus. Okay, yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, let's close.